There are very few gardening methods that have lasted thousands of years, and honestly even fewer that consistently outperform modern fertilizers. Yet one ancient practice has proven itself across continents, climates, and soil types. It's a technique used by early Amazonian growers, by Asian rice farmers, and by Old World horticulturalists who, really understood the value of long-lasting soil fertility. The method is simple, but when applied correctly, it transforms poor or depleted soil into a nutrient-rich, microbe-packed environment that, produces larger yields, stronger plants, and season-long stability. That ancient trick is the use of biochar, carbon-rich, porous charcoal blended into the soil to strengthen structure, retain nutrients, and support healthy soil biology. This isn't a trend or a gimmick. Biochar is one of the most reliable long-term soil amendments a gardener can use, especially if you want consistent harvests year after year without, constantly adding fertilizers. Its ability to hold nutrients, store moisture, and host beneficial microbes makes it one of the most valuable soil tools any gardener can master. The strength of biochar lies in its structure. When organic matter is burned without oxygen, a process called pyrolysis, it forms a porous, carbon-dense material capable of holding nutrients much longer than compost alone. Compost breaks down quickly, which is excellent for feeding plants in the short term, but it also means you must keep reapplying it. Biochar remains stable in the soil for decades. Every tiny pore in a piece of biochar becomes a home for beneficial microbes. These microbes, drive nutrient cycling, root development, and disease resistance. When a plant's roots extend into a biochar-rich zone, they access a reservoir of nutrients and moisture that standard soil just cannot match. This reservoir becomes especially useful during dry spells, nutrient-demanding phases like flowering, or periods of heat stress. The ancient terra preta soils of the Amazon, some still fertile after thousands of years, contain large amounts of biochar. The same principle can be applied in modern gardens, whether in raised beds, in-ground plots, or container systems. One of the biggest mistakes gardeners make is adding biochar to soil before charging it with nutrients. Raw biochar acts like a sponge. Instead of feeding your plants, it pulls nutrients from the soil, leaving plants temporarily deprived. This issue is solved by pre-charging or activating the biochar before it ever touches your garden beds. Right, so activation is simple. Soak the biochar in a nutrient-rich mix until it absorbs enough to become a slow-release source, rather than, a nutrient thief. You can use compost tea, worm castings, diluted fish emulsion, fermented plant juice, or even manure tea. Once activated, the biochar begins working immediately, providing both structure and nutrition to the soil. A practical ratio for activation is 1 part biochar to 1 part compost by volume. Mix them together and moisten thoroughly. Let the mixture sit for at least a week. If you're using liquid fertilizer, soak 1 quart of dry biochar in 1 quart of diluted solution for about 24 to 48 hours until it's fully saturated. Once charged, the biochar becomes a long-term nutrient bank that improves soil performance season after season. So, biochar can be added to any garden system, but the amount you use really depends on your soil type. Sandy soils, for instance, benefit the most because the biochar helps retain moisture and nutrients, which is just brilliant. Now, clay soils improve because the biochar adds air pockets and breaks up compaction, making things a lot easier for roots. And, loam soils become richer, more stable, and more biologically active. For new beds, you'll want to mix about 5 to 10% biochar by volume into the top 6 to 8 inches of soil. As an example, if you're filling a 4 by 8 raised bed, adding 4 to 8 gallons of activated biochar is ideal. Just make sure to blend it thoroughly so it distributes evenly throughout the soil. For established beds, simply broadcast about 1/2 to 1 inch of activated biochar across the top and work it gently into the upper layer. Over time, the biochar stabilizes the bed and reduces nutrient loss, which is really handy. And if you're working with container gardens, mixing 1 cup of activated biochar per gallon of potting mix provides long-term fertility without the need for constant feeding. Never add raw biochar directly to planting holes. It must be pre-charged or blended into soil before planting to avoid nutrient drawdown. Gardeners who consistently use biochar notice several improvements. First, plants become more resilient to irregular watering. Biochar, you see, stores moisture like a reservoir, giving roots steady access throughout the day. This prevents those stress cycles that reduce fruit set in tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, beans, and squash. Second, biochar prevents nutrient loss from heavy rain or overwatering. Its pores trap nitrogen, potassium, calcium, and trace minerals, instead of letting them wash away. This gives plants a steady supply during high-demand growth phases, especially fruiting. Third, biochar promotes stronger root systems. Because it houses beneficial microbes, roots grow deeper and thicker, leading to more aggressive nutrient uptake and improved overall plant performance. Finally, biochar creates cumulative benefits. Each season, soil structure improves a little more. After 2 or 3 years, you notice the soil turning darker, softer, and more crumbly, with far better water absorption. So, for example, a gardener dealing with heavy clay soil might apply 10% activated biochar in the first year to help break up compaction. Within just 1 season, drainage improves, roots are able to penetrate deeper, and fruiting plants start to produce noticeably larger yields. And, a container gardener might blend 1 cup per gallon of potting mix, which often results in fewer nutrient deficiencies and much more consistent moisture retention. A raised bed grower, for instance, might mix 5 gallons of activated biochar per bed. This usually produces stronger crops with reduced fertilizer inputs the following season. Now, this 3,000-year-old soil trick isn't really a shortcut. It's a long-term investment in soil health that pays off with unbeatable harvests year after year. Once you integrate activated biochar into your garden routine, your soil becomes richer, deeper, and honestly more productive with far less effort. If you want more proven, time-tested techniques like this, make sure you subscribe to Gentle Herb Living and share this guide with other growers who are ready to elevate their harvests.